Hello, today I'd like to talk about puzzle design. If you recall in the Kickstarter pitch, one of the things that I felt pretty strongly about was the avoidance of typical horror game puzzles, or I guess I said puzzles in general. But I don't know if I strayed completely from puzzles, because some of the enemies, especially the patients in the asylum, they were puzzle based, especially the last one, where you had to figure out how to get around him. That was a straight up puzzle, and I thought it was an interesting one, and also some people felt like the candle act sequence in The Coming Storm was sort of a light puzzle. So I guess my stance of being against puzzles is not 100% absolute. I just wanted to avoid sort of esoteric puzzles that don't really fit in the world of the game. And I think to some extent that puzzles are beneficial, because I think people felt with Neverending Nightmares that there wasn't a strong objective moving them forward, which was deliberate, but I think when starting a new project with different goals, we can try and address that. And I think a good way to address that would be to include puzzles. And so I think, or maybe light puzzles, I don't know, depends on how you define puzzles, but I'd like to talk about what I think makes a good puzzle, and what I think we could do and what I think we shouldn't do. Thomas Grip, the creative director at Frictional, has written a lot on his blog about good puzzle design and how to make them work in horror games or games in general. And I think all of that's really beneficial and good to read if you're interested in the subject. But just from my own opinion, which is certainly shaped by his opinion, I think there's a couple different things, there's a lot of different things you want to do with a puzzle, and when you put all the restrictions on it, it actually makes coming up with a puzzle challenging. So just coming up with an interesting puzzle is a challenge in and of itself. Like, in a lot of games, you're just presented with something that is a puzzle, and you have to solve it. The problem is that, in my opinion, when you're presented with something that just is a regular puzzle, it often doesn't really fit into the narrative of the game. So, like, Uncharted is a game with puzzles, and they're basically these, sort of Indiana Jones-style ridiculous machinery that really couldn't feasibly exist for, when these artifacts or ruins were developed. But in that sense, I think they fit in the context of the story, although certainly I object to the whole Indiana Jones, somehow these people developed these sophisticated machinery that kills you if you step on the wrong tile. But then, like, if you look at a game like Fatal Frame, and I love Fatal Frame, and I'm not trying to bag on it, but you are presented with, like, locked doors sometimes, and usually you need to find a piece, and then once you find the piece, it says, rearrange these things in 5 moves or less. Which, if you imagine yourself as one of the characters in the Fatal Frame game, and you imagine that you walk up to a door, you have this piece, you don't really, it doesn't seem realistic in the context of the game fiction that you have to slide all of these things within 5 moves, and that to me it takes me out of the immersion, and takes me out of the horror, and takes me out of the world, which is what we really want to avoid. And certainly, as far as puzzles go, the locked doors are the least interesting, which is not to say that we wouldn't do locked doors because it's hard to, come up with amazing things for every situation. But I think usually you want the objective to be clear, like I need to solve this puzzle to do this, and you want to make that it's a narrative goal. So they're further developing their character, or solving a problem that the character has, and so I think that makes things more challenging. And so certainly you could give them a motivation to explain why opening this locked door is important, and I think that would be an improvement over just showing, here's a locked door, find a key, because you find keys for doors. But with all these constraints, it's tough to it's really tough to come up with good puzzles. And so one of the things for the next game, I'm thinking that a lot of due to the setting, a good amount of it is going to be outdoors. And so outdoors doesn't really lend itself well to these sort of locked doors, or I mean, I guess you can do the Indiana Jones thing where there's some infernal machine that was built by civilizations a million years ago, but personally I don't like that. I think it damages the atmosphere that we're going for. So then it's a real challenge trying to think of puzzles. So certainly there's things we can do where we can do something like the asylum patient, where you basically have to figure out the trick to avoiding the enemy. We really want to have interesting puzzles, and so avoiding enemies could be one puzzle. Getting items, sort of the fetch quest. I think, if you frame it in an interesting manner, then I think the fetch quest works really well. I mean, I feel like the Coming Storm, people really dug the structure of that level. And I guess I didn't realize how beneficial it was until we shipped, and then people are saying, oh, we're missing objectives, and oh, we're missing this and missing that, and oh, we're just walking around. So I think giving people purpose, and I was very deliberate, although I didn't quite consider it a puzzle, I was very deliberately trying to introduce the objectives. So if you listen near the planks of woods, there's sort of a banging noise, which is sort of reminiscent of Ju-on 2, where the banging noise was some future hanging thing, and so, but I thought that would be sort of a good creepy thing to say, hey, this is important, and the basement, and we put those elements right in the first hall, so it's very clear, these are points of interest, and then when you get the candle, what to do with it, because you saw this dark stairway, and then when you get the axe, what to do with it, because you saw the boards and hopefully heard the banging, although the banging is hard to hear unless you do a closer look, but it's in there, or just quiet. So that is something that I think we did really well, and then we almost took the game in a little bit of a different direction and didn't really do things like that. We focused on enemies a little more, and also just tried to come up with these cool worlds to explore. But I think that was a good idea, and I think we can do more of that for the next game. And it's definitely something I'd think about. But if you have a favorite puzzle, or if you have an idea that you think is really cool, feel free to post it on the forum or leave it in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching.